Let me introduce my panel. This evening I have Agatha Atuhaire, activist and political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Agatha. Good evening.
Good evening, Patrick.
We have Dominic Ken Luchamuzi, former member of parliament of Rubaga. Sometimes we call him the man. Thank you so much for joining us, Ken.
Thank you too.
And from Agago County, we have the member of parliament, Edward Otto McMahon. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening.
Thank you and good evening.
Let me begin with you, Agatha, because you did this. You tried to expose what we have seen. When you exposed issues within Parliament about corruption and the expenditures and the graft, what shocked you most? Is it the nature of spending or the normalization of corruption?
I think what shocked me the most was that each spending or corruption that I discovered would be worse than the previous one. And the other was that I would hear from my same sources that, she's saying you cannot do anything. She is, no one can touch her. And that impunity for me, that someone gets up and, bloats the budget of the entire parliament by double. And then most of that increment is for her. It was very shocking. I wondered what has happened to Uganda, because we used to say Uganda has gone to the dogs maybe 10 years ago. I don't know what we would say now, because it has.
There's always another law we can take. When you think you've gone to the bottom, there's yet another bottom we can go to.
Yeah, and that there's nothing any institution charged with fighting corruption was doing about it. Not the Auditor General, who is supposed to audit every money spent, not the IGG, not the PPDA, when procurement issues came up, not the president, because we have become a country where nothing can be done if the president hasn't said a word. So I was shocked that we've reached that level where no one is interested in doing anything against corruption. And people now are stealing in broad daylight and are...
So Agatha, you're saying every time you try to investigate, you peel off one layer and you find there's even much more that is darker. There's a darker underbelly for one more underbelly that is even more darker, but that people were finding it normal.
Yeah. It was normal for everyone. I became the abnormal one. I became so abnormal that people said I am obsessed with her. I have a personal vendetta against her, and because for everyone else it was okay. And people would call me and say, but who do you think you are? Do you think you're the one who will change things in this country? Do you? So I became the abnormal one, because I am continuing to speak up about this. And the darker that you're talking about, sometimes I wouldn't see it.
And yet, we are talking about a citadel, a temple of democracy.
Yeah.
An institution whose job it is to check on other arms of government for accountability.
That's why they were not checking on other arms of government anymore. Because if the executive now wants something, Parliament would have to give in. There is a time, for example, I'll give you this example, that in 2022-2023 financial year, during that budget, the president wanted something passed that the MPs had been uncomfortable about. It must be the 37 billion that was going to Inspire Africa, but it was being advocated for by his son-in-law, Rabogo. So he meets them, I think at State House, and he says, I know you are also corrupt, give me what I want. And so it became, you have no moral authority now as a parliament to question budget allocations, to carry out any oversight, because you are corrupt and I know it.
I know your job was not to say you wanted some people out or heads to roll, but honestly, when you look back, when everybody was laughing at you, saying maybe you have a personal vendetta, maybe you're obsessed, maybe this girl has an indecent obsession, but look where we are now. Do you look back and say, well, maybe I have been exonerated?
Yeah, I look at people that use it to troll me and attack me and tell me that I have a personal problem with the speaker, someone I've never even met in person, and now they are actually the ones that are condemning her, and I say, but you said I had a problem. The problem is that I do not feel proud that it's because of my expose that this is happening. I think that this happened because this is when President Museveni and his son wanted it to happen. It has looked like there is something else that is going on because not everyone in, well, maybe it will come, but recently when the PLU and their head, Hoskin Rugaba, said they are bringing back Honorable Thomas Taiwa as Deputy Speaker, because now what they say is what goes, because he says it and Thomas Taiwa comes and praises him and thanks him. He's not even been voted yet, but it's as if he's been appointed. And now that's a parliament you expect to check the executive. Let me finish that point. When that happens, you say, but it was the parliamentary leadership that is involved in this. How are you quickly exonerating the deputy who is part of this leadership to say he can now come as a deputy speaker? Why not first investigate the entire leadership, including the commission, including the clerk to parliament, and then you say, okay, we have observed this, we have seen this, and then continue.
Let me go to a man who's been in the parliament before, but for some reasons also was stopped to continue in parliament. But I'm not going to look into your personal conduct or your political journey, Honorable Ken Luchamuzi. The question I want to begin with, when you hear that there is a country, Uganda, is losing 9 trillion, which is almost 30% of the total budget, to corruption, when this stops at being individual corrupt members, but as if corruption is embedded within the governance system of a country, how do we get out of this?
Yeah, at one time, Parliament was the messiah of all that in terms of solutions. But as standards started dwindling, we are where we are. I want to give an example which is living. In the 7th Parliament, where I was an outstanding performer, it is on record that there was a rumor that one of the speakers of Parliament, there are 2 speakers, the deputy and the main speaker, talked with pride about the money which was given to the members of Parliament as a bribe to pass the amendment of the Constitution on presidential term limit. I used a scenario in the rules of procedure which is permissible, where you can stand without notice and say, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to raise a matter of public concern. And I stood to raise a matter of public concern with reference to one of the papers, I think it was Bukere, where it was reported that one of the speakers had accepted that he got the money and he distributed part of that money to the constituents in a given constituency, which I will not mention. I was put to task to explain, and I was scared because the speaker started saying he was sending me to the committee in charge of disciplinary committee. But I did not lose my way. I carried on. I insisted that I was prepared to go to the disciplinary committee, provided I was going to be given the opportunity to speak my mind over what happened. Eventually, I think when people realized, the speaker realized that the matter was becoming too much for him, because as time went on, the backbenchers gave me support, and that is how I gained the name Ken Starr, John Ken Starr, the man. They were referring to me as if I was Ken Starr, the senator that moved the motion in the Senate over
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton's Lewinsky matter. I did not give up. The point I wanted to make is that as standards of parliament begin dwindling, we are seeing a situation where you can no longer now move a motion of that kind without the sanctity of the speaker, which means that the speaker needs that information so that he alerts the given minister that so and so is about to speak about you, so you better get ready. When in actual fact, the intention of that provision was to catch the ministers unaware, which is no longer there now. I would like to think that it is too much for Parliament. Uganda had developed a reputation of parliamentary practice which was unique in East Africa, but now we are going back to where we started. It is most unfortunate. The loss of over 10, is it 10 trillion shillings?
Yes, according to the IGG.
Is an absurdity. But it's true. The way people are playing about with money in Parliament is not explainable. This constitution of ours, which at one time commanded a reputation, is now losing succor, is losing meaning. You remember very well that a number of problems related to corruption could very easily be tackled through the parliamentary practice zone. But now Parliament is losing out, totally losing out. You become an enemy when you talk about corruption in Parliament.
So, well, we have the Honorable McMott. You're headed to Parliament representing Agago. You've been there before. You are a lawyer. You've practiced in Uganda. You've practiced in Canada. You know, when you hear we are losing almost a quarter of our budget to corruption, you cannot just keep pointing fingers at individuals. There is a whole system. It's systematic. It is embedded. It's within. Like everybody seems to have fallen short of the glory, especially those in position of leadership. Your take, Honorable McMott.
Yes, thank you. That is now public information, and it can't be denied. I think that we need to take action. And I appreciate that we have action being taken at the moment. But having served in Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee that is in charge of controlling Parliament, is in charge of providing oversight over that vote of Parliament, I think, and also having served as the Vice Chair of Rules, Privilege and Discipline, I think that I know that we can say that we have good laws in the Administration of Parliament Act, but I know some amendments have also been made, and there are ways we could potentially close this gap. One of the things I noted, and which I think is part of the problem, was when all the money for parliamentary commission, for all the different committees was put in a pool. That therefore made it possible for the presiding officer or the speaker or the PD speaker, wherever, the commission, to actually take it without limit, because now it was just a question of now controlling committees from using it. Then you have all this pool of money that you can use as you want without people noting. Otherwise, if it was left as it was before, I think it would be easy to actually put a cap to what is available to the office of the speaker or the deputy speaker. I think that is part of the problem that we are having. The other problem, I think, is that I think we have talked about it at the time when commissioners of Parliament were being elected. It was a different story altogether. But now that the commission has appointed, I think Parliament has been silenced. So I think that oversight role of a parliamentary commission, if we are talking about the issues at Parliament, has been weakened because of that change in the law. So there are certain things, there are reforms that can be done in the law that could potentially close this loophole. Otherwise, I can't deny the problem. But
so when you see, for example, the efforts that are being made right now, for example, the investigations that are ongoing, do you actually believe that the fight against corruption is real, or probably they are playing for the gallery?
It is too early. It's a developing story. It is too early. But I think there are tangible, there are visible steps that have been taken. And it's whether we can live to... at the end of the day, I said it at Parliament. As a lawyer, I've done criminal law abroad and here. Investigation is one thing. Whatever the police collects has to be sanctioned by the state, by the prosecutor or whatever. At the end of the day, they need to prove that beyond reasonable doubt. So they still, before we can say justice is seen to be done, it's still a process. So I think it is too early because we are still at an investigative stage, and I think we should allow that to take place. I think it is a step in the right direction. we should allow that to go on.
Agatha, you know, when we look at members of parliament or other politicians who are in the executive, we forget that they have been elected by the people, and the electoral process they go through is in itself seems to be very corrupt. In beginning from the primaries to the general elections, the use of money, the bribery, the intimidation, the violence, can it give birth to leaders who are of good moral values and good standing, after all, from the very beginning?
No, it cannot. And I think the system that has brought this about knows it, and it works for it. I think the first thing that needs to be done is to make politics less lucrative. You know, someone who is standing for MP is going to be ready to spend, we've seen figures being about 3 billion shillings, especially when you go to Western Uganda. And now that person wants to recoup that money. He's coming to Parliament to recoup that money. If the salaries and benefits are not enough, they are going to take bribes from, you've heard about bribes, the corruption in the budget committee, I imagine. They are going to take bribes, they are going to be indebted, and someone who is indebted is not going to stand up to anyone and say this is wrong. Because at the end of the day, when you hear about the 100 million given to pass a bill or to pass a supplementary budget, it's because they know how vulnerable they are. So I think that the first thing for anyone who wants maybe to make reforms is to say, it's a service. Go to Parliament and serve people. And then you will attract people that actually are doing this for the love of it. But as it is now, if you, Kamara, went to stand for a position where you come from, you will not get it. Because unless you've been somewhere in this government, in civil service, where you were able to steal money and go, and I think your colleague Charles would tell you that story much better than I am. Charles Mwangusha was standing somewhere in, is it Bunyanga? Brasha. The person he's standing against comes from National Water, is money bags, is giving money. No one cares whether you, Charles, you are intelligent, or you can speak well, or you can do anything. What the voters care about is that this person has given them money, and we are not, because it's a crime. We have laws that make bribing voters a crime, but no one wants to. It has become normal.
Okay, you know, Honorable John Ken Chamazi, yes. Now members of Parliament, especially the NRM caucus, will be meeting on Sunday, and probably after that, on Monday, we see they take a position, and next week we should be having a new speaker. But the position of speaker in Uganda is like a, you know, drinking from a poisoned well. Whoever goes there, they come out probably not in a very good way. But if we are to elect, if they are to elect a speaker, you have been there. What kind of woman or man should make a good speaker?
Yeah, first and foremost, before you begin the parliamentary practice exercise, there is what they call induction. I have not been moved by the recent induction exercises in Uganda's parliamentary practice. The practice of an induction nature in the first parliament, in the 6th parliament, 7th parliament, 9th parliament was a talking side man. I saw some distinguished scholars with a bias in parliamentary practice coming to speak to Uganda's new parliamentarians. The Honorable Kaparo, a former speaker of the Parliament of Kenya, Professor Ali Mazoi, who was one of those that talked to us, the late Professor Kanyahamba, Professor Nsibambi, Professor Mujaju. I'm talking about some...
Unfortunately, all the names you have said, including my uncle, are dead.
Professor Oloka Onyango.
Okay, now we have one.
Some very distinct personalities that could talk and you get impressed. I would like to state from the very beginning of the answering the question is that a good speaker of parliament must emulate what the late Edmund Burke prescribed when he was tasked in the House of Commons to define a good parliamentarian, who is a parliamentarian. A member of parliament is not a delegate. A member of parliament is a representative he must have the aptitude of talking freely in his mind to make a contribution for his constituents. 2, a Speaker of Parliament, therefore, should love the game of moderation. The Speaker must entice, welcome every subject that is brought on the floor of Parliament. He should love discussion. He should love debate. He should make a distinction between ordinary talking and the rules of procedure of Parliament. I have never seen any respect attached to Right Honorable Among in regard to the preservation of the rules of procedure of Parliament. And you cannot efficiently manage Parliament without paying tribute to the rules of procedure of Parliament. Because of that dilemma, most of the members of Parliament think that the talking point must necessarily be restricting you to the budget or State of the Nation address. No, it is not. Some of the speakers of Parliament who are backbenchers can make wonders through specialization in specific areas. There are people who are good talkers on the plight of a dead person being brought before Parliament to pay tribute to him or to her. One could narrate the scenarios of Shakespeare talking about the phenomenon of death with reference to the dead man lying before the floor. Then there are some distinguished people who are experts in tasking the government of Uganda to explain the budget. There are others who are gifted in talking about the State of the Nation address. There are others who
so the Speaker should find the strength of each member of Parliament and really work on it.
Exactly. There are some who are so beautiful in talking about the rules of procedure, a point of procedure. The late Agrawoli was a star in tasking the state on the procedure point in regard to what was flowing on the floor regarding the rules of procedure and what is on the order paper. I particularly specialized in talking about the environment and the State of the Nation address.
Yes.
During my time, when Honorable Wapakabulo was Speaker of Parliament, he was tasked by the cabinet. The cabinet said, but you, Wapakabulo, you are giving this young man, I was very young then at that time, you are giving this young man a lot of time. When I started talking about the State of the Nation, very rarely would a bell ring to stop me. There are times when I found myself talking for as long as 40 minutes without a stop, but with a lot of impression. So a good Speaker of Parliament must love discussion. He must love debate. He must respect all his members of Parliament without any reservation. A good Speaker should respect the rules of procedure of Parliament. A good Speaker of Parliament should advise his speakers, his members of Parliament on how to improve in terms of etiquette.
In other words, he should be an intellectual himself.
Yeah.
He should be intelligent himself. He should not be scared of smart people.
Yeah, and a good speaker should necessarily be a lawyer, so to speak. I'm sorry to say that. Not because I'm a lawyer. So
now,
but
Honorable Makumot, you know, because now, by the way, you cross into the NRM. The last time I checked, you were an independent. I think now you have realized that if you can't beat them, you join them. And you have joined them. But now that you have joined them, really, is it within your powers as members of Parliament to elect a speaker? Because in Uganda, it appears where General Museveni goes one, you go all. Let's face it, it's going to take the caucus where you sit, and the chairman's wishes will come through. It's simply the chairman. What the chairman chooses, who the chairman chooses is going to be the next speaker, isn't it?
Yes, I think before I get to that, you had asked a very, very important question that I have an input.
But I thought my real question was what the chairman chooses is what the chairman makes, isn't it?
I will.
I think that's the question I'm interested in.
I will answer that.
Okay.
But I think it would, if I don't say something about an holistic approach to this problem that brings corruption, we would be treating symptoms I think what Agatha said about the monetization of politics is real. People put in a lot of money, they come to Parliament to recover that money. That is part of the problem. And if the Speaker is not strong, they will pressurize the Speaker. All those numbers of 500, they will come saying, we are dying, give us money. So I think the Speaker can end up being a victim. They are very powerful, influential members of Parliament who can actually get the Speaker, drag the Speaker into problems. He can be surrounded by very wrong people. The other issue that I think we need to address, I lived in Canada. There is the Ministry of Social Welfare. I'm glad there is now talk of Social Security and SAGE. In as long as members of Parliament continue to become Social Security providers, health, marriage, funeral, and all that, which is not the case in other countries, we are now making MPs to run ministries from their salaries. And if that continues, members of Parliament will continue to either increase their salary or look for money in one way or another. And that is where I will end up in corruption. So I thought I should say that I attended the budget advocacy thing, and I think that I might end up moving a private member's bill in that direction, because there's a structural problem. Other than that, I cannot go into much detail because of time. Let me get back to your question. Yes, it is true. in the system that we have today, I think, as I know in my party, definitely people are waiting for the guidance of the national chairman. And what the president would say at the caucus is most likely going to carry the day. And any attempt to try to go against that will make you a rebel MP, and the precedents are there. So that one goes without saying. I think that's...
So really, but all this thing of we are competing for power, contestation for position of speaker, and yet members of Parliament, at the back of your mind, what the chairman decides, the chairman gets. So what's the point?
Well, that's what the law says, and I think...
the law says it's going to masquerade a little bit. The law says that you will, try to pretend.
You'll have to compete. That you'll have to compete. Although in reality, you're saying that that's a smokescreen. That is window dressing.
There's no competition.
That is window dressing. At the end of the day, the decision of the caucus and the chairman of the party, his opinion is definitely, many of the members are going to respect that, and that will carry the day. And that is what most people are waiting. That's really, I don't want to even disagree with that. That has happened over again.
But it should be okay for the chairman to have an interest. But the thing is, maybe to let you debate, to let you, now decide among maybe 3 or 4 people, say, okay, let them contest, let them come and speak before you, and then you choose. But if it goes down to, it has already been endorsed, ring-faced, and then, imposed, if I may use that word, I think that's not democratic, is it?
I agree, and that is the view of many of us, is that, well, guidance is one thing, but in some situation, given the position of the president, given his role, given how much respect we give him, I think in some setting that could be undue influence, because even a judge, in many cases, they would not say their position beforehand. So in my view, I think that, especially for the position of deputy speakership, now that we are hearing all this, I think there's need to groom cadres. There's need to give us opportunity to showcase what we are made of, so that people can have a considered opinion at the end of the day. So it's our prayer that at the end of the day, we may be given an opportunity. I know the rule of Parliament with respect to actual election of the speaker, the rule of Parliament doesn't even allow us to debate. You will just be nominated, you accept, and then people go on. So I think maybe there are also gaps in that area, because at the end of the day, it doesn't give us enough time to really give enough information to people to make. At the end of the day, you end up electing somebody you don't know so well, in my view. So I think that's another area that we should address.
So Agatha, I can imagine as a whistleblower, when you peel off the layers of corruption and you show us the dark underbelly, sometimes the institutions will protect the powerful, even though they are facing charges of or allegations of corruption. But where does it leave you as a whistleblower in terms of your protection, of your safety? What's your experience after, exposing the dark underbelly of Parliament?
I have not felt safe for the last 4 years in this country. And one thing that can prove it to you is I have a report in my house that was written by a CID officer called Charles Twine in 2022 after I wrote about the irregular procurement of 2.8 billion cards for both the Speaker and her deputy. And the report was about someone who they thought gave me the information, but in that report I am mentioned so many times, and there's things like, oh, we know this is Agatha's Twitter account, we verified it with UCC, this is her phone number, we verified it, she has a hatred against the institution of Parliament, she has what? So many of the people they thought were giving me information were arrested, were detained, some were fired from their office, and it was clear that I was the one they were coming for next. Some people intervened, lawyers called, for example, Charles Twine that time and said, what's the issue? You have an issue against Agatha. Do you want to summon her for anything? I think when we talked about it a lot, the director of communications, Obore, came and said, we have no problem with Agatha, our problem is with our people that are giving out information. But this was procurement information, Patrick. Procurement information is public. It's not just public. An entity is even required to put it on its website, to put it in the papers. So there was no secret that had been leaked to me. So since then, I really thought that you need to take all the precautions you can take, or you just need to live like a chicken of a drunkard. You've heard that story? Yeah, so
surviving day by
yeah,
day.
so I'm not really the kind to be afraid of death. I know that we have no control over when one dies, even if you're not killed by who. So I knew that I wasn't safe, but I thought that I should continue to do what I need to do, what my job requires to do, what my conscience tells me to do.
Honorable Ken Luchamuzi, isn't it high time government recognized that civil society organizations and activists like Agatha and people who are doing all this are strategic allies of the government, because they help in trying, first of all, in fighting graft, in making sure integrity is intact. They shouldn't be looking at them as them and us, but you look at them as a strategic ally because they help the government, don't they?
Yeah, as if that was not enough, Kamal. I tend to think, good enough, we are all lawyers here. And I think the matter of law I'm going to articulate should interest each one of us. The people are the most important component of society. As we speak now, the misdoings we are experiencing is not from the blue. It is initiated by the current rulers. Why? Because under the law as it stands, in a case of Human Rights Network versus Attorney General, the Constitutional Court ruled that nobody should stop Agatha from talking publicly on anything, addressing or making any demonstration. And that challenge has never been, the Attorney General promised to challenge that in court. There has never been any appeal. Where we are now is a very difficult situation. The members of Parliament feel insecure, partially because there is no freedom of association, freedom of speech in Uganda. The political parties that send representatives to Parliament should individually be free to articulate issues publicly in public gatherings, including public rallies. When you talk about a public rally today now, before President Museveni and others, you are in trouble. Why should there be trouble because I'm addressing a public rally? We are where we are because there is no freedom of expression in Uganda. And until we break the bonds of that mischief, Uganda is not going to remain at peace. I therefore would like to propose that the Agathas are insecure, partially because political parties or NGOs are not free to articulate the issues. If we were free to talk with the political parties, you would equally be free to speak as civil societies. Otherwise, why is Parliament as it is? Why did this woman emerge? You have a rich scenario of speakers from Uganda's history in the recent parliamentary practice. From Wapakabulo, you have Ayume, you have Sekandi, you have Kadaga, you have Olanya. All of them were very strong-minded speakers. It is only Lady Among that he failed the circus of integrity.
I want to remind you that in her becoming speaker, I think she garnered more support than any other speaker in terms of the votes that she got. I think she had the highest mandate, Agatha, if you look back. Yeah. The people who elected her in that office gave her a higher mandate in terms of the numerical strength than any other.
Yeah,
but any other of those speakers you're talking about.
Yeah, come on, but when society is beginning to dwindle, you should not be surprised about that.
The monetization we're talking about.
Maybe what you are talking about was marking the beginning of a scenario of dwindling.
but Honorable Mahmoud, I saw a couple of weeks back members of parliament from different regions, including my region. They were speaking in the groups, you know, endorsing the Right Honorable Anita Among as the Speaker of the 12th Parliament. I don't know whether in Lango and Acholi that happened, but in Toro it happened. So I wonder what is going to happen now, because they were speaking with a lot of enthusiasm and happiness and excitement. I remember some of them were even barefoot and talking about how they have it is resolved for them. So it is not resolved anymore?
I think you've said it all at the end of the day.
The way how you switch within 1 minute, it's very interesting, you as members of parliament.
I was not part of that. I sat back, and I think it's always good to be cautious in this, especially given what you stated. At the end of the day, this decision will be made at the caucus. So for you to, before knowing, to get excited and go out of your way, I think people have learned in a hard way. But the funny bit of it is that the very same people who are doing that, even on camera and endorsing, were among the first to, when Chairman PLU endorsed my brother and my former chairman, Ligo, or both of both. I saw some of those guys just ran there. I'm like, when did it change? So I thought I was just, so I don't know. That is something really for legislators. Somebody told me, what do you expect the villagers to do, your voters to do, if you at that level are behaving like that? So I think that's the problem.
Agatha,
that's the problem.
Agatha, I want your take on this pendulum movement of members of parliament. One day they are with the Anita Among and they are on record and they are praising and singing and they're cheerleaders, and the next day it's both and the same people are singing and cheerleaders. Do they even have a soul?
Because that's the society we are, Patrick. It is a society of what is in it for me, and people have found it normal. This is not the first time that's happening. You might think it's strange, but when it was Kadaga, the people that were behind her were immediately switched and started, and because there's warring factions now between Kadaga and Right Honorable Among when she became Speaker. But the closest friends of Kadaga were now the closest allies of Among. It's mainly about selfish interests. Where is my bread going to be buttered? No one wants to lose with a losing candidate. So I think for me, knowing the society that we work with, having had so many questions every day about, but who do you work for? That's what people ask me, because they do not know. Ugandans do not think that anyone can work for the good of the entire society. It's not surprising. I think that what I've been thinking about when you've been saying all that, what the chairman will say, will pass, I started wondering what chairman are we talking about right now? Because as he mentioned, there's PLU, there's NRM, each one of them are choosing. So,
but Agatha, you know, when when the government moves or the state institutions move in investigating corruption, some people think, okay, now something is happening. But there are those who would think, well, it's not about fighting corruption. They are trying to settle political scores. What's your take on that?
That is exactly what I think too.
You think so?
Yes.
Why?
One is that they have not just known now that the Speaker of Parliament is corrupt. So first, like I've told you, for me the history is that I have written about the Parliament since I've been writing about it, but this particular 11th Parliament, since the new leadership took over, we've written about cars that are being procured without following procurement procedures. We've written about recruitment. I think about 500 people have been employed in Parliament without you ever seeing any advert in the papers. We've written about corruption in the budget, where reallocations are made, and every year there's one institution or MDA, or there's one MP who is benefiting from reallocations. All this, the government, the president knew about it. The IGG knew about it, because in 2024 we took it upon ourselves to even write to the IGG. The PPD knew about it. Financial Intelligence Authority, which later recently closed my account that had less than $1,000. I mean, did not see a problem with accounts that move billions of shillings. So they have not known now. And I will tell you that her being investigated now and the humiliation we are seeing, it's because she did not give up the speakership race. If she had said, I am not going to run for speakership, they wouldn't have investigated her for corruption or humiliated her, as we are seeing. So it's the political scores that they are settling, in the sense that that corruption made her too powerful for them to contend with that.
So,
money.
So in your view, since you're saying there's political scores to settle, I wonder what would that be? Because look, in the last concluded election, the Right Honorable Anita Among worked extremely hard, in my view, was with the president every step where the president went, put in her money and worked hard as well. And perhaps because of her, we have seen the NRM, scores went up. Why wouldn't she say, maybe keep doing what you're doing? After all, you're a part of the winning formula. No,
because when I see how many people you can mobilize, I am now threatened that you can mobilize them against me. When Anita Among has the entire Parliament, all the MPs on both divide, by the way, you can count maybe 1, 2, 3 that you will say, if she said do this, they wouldn't do it. But the rest of the 500 would. And that's the institution that runs everything here. The president is not going to.
So her skill of controlling, her skill of mobilization also has become the threat.
It has become. It's a double-edged sword. When you are seated there in Kololo as President Museveni and see how your SEC members are falling over themselves to vote for Anita, you were talking about how she mobilized to become speaker. I don't know if you know how much she beat Rebecca Kadagabai in the national vice chairperson seat.
It was an annihilation.
Huge. So that does not just impress Museveni or the heir apparent. It makes them scared. And it is true, I want to say, to repeat what I saw Andrew Mwenda saying on UBC last night, that this money, most of it, went to do the president's work. The money that, I think for him who was saying all of it, I am sure that she would take half to herself and put half in mobilizing for President Museveni. For example, in saying, let's give money to people that own political parties so that they do not stand against you as presidential candidates, or they do not back Kyagulanyi. That happened in the last election. I have that on good authority. Or giving people money every rally that the president went at. This time, the president would just go address people and leave. Never had to pay anyone transport, refund, or food, or anything. Anita Among was doing all that. And I think no one tipped her that, that is not such a good thing to do after all. So I think that it's now the corruption that comes to say we have now something to hold on your head. But I think we have seen that those that they find loyal to them, I have told people before, if you see at the number of people that took iron sheets for Karamoja, both took them as well. Now, if it is corruption you are fighting, you're not going to bring someone else who is involved in any corruption until maybe he's exonerated. So it's that for him, even if he's corrupt, he's ours, maybe he's loyal, maybe he will not threaten us. And the same goes for Taiba. And the same goes for, we've seen this selective prosecution before. It's not the first time.
Agatha, gentlemen, hold on to your points because we're going to take a break on the spot. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight have the Honorable Edward Otto McMort, Honorable Ken Luchamuzi, and Agatha Atuhaire, and we're looking at shedding a light on what is happening in Parliament. But, Honorable McMort, for quite some time, the talk has been from the opposition that the government is corrupt, that the NRM party is corrupt. But really, corruption, it appears, is transcending even party lines, isn't it?
That is very true. Corruption is now endemic. People have talked about it in school, in different activities. It's not confined to the ruling party. And my problem is that even the people who are talking, if they go into the present system, they will probably, opposition, they will end up also being corrupt if we don't diagnose the real root cause of corruption, as we have said before. I think Honorable
Anita Mong was, until a few years back, a member of Forum for Democratic Change.
And she was still corrupt.
Yes. But not only, even the deputy and very many other people. So there's a big structural problem. We need a structural adjustment. There are loopholes that we need to close in order for us to deal with corruption. I lived in Canada. Corruption is also there. Disguised, just like tax evasion and tax avoidance. They do it. But what I've seen is the response when aspects of corruption is noted is different. Then one of the things that I saw, like in a criminal law of Canada, that I think maybe it is our institution as a judiciary or the law enforcement is not strong enough to enforce, is abuse of trust. In Canada, if you are caught in a crime of moral aptitude, the criminal record that you get will not even allow you to seek many of these offices at the end of the day. And the punishment for abuse of trust, for abuse of fiduciary, when you're in that position and you abuse it, is dire. It is, first of all, it is imprisonment to begin with a criminal record, and you'll be sanctioned from serving in public offices. When we start to do that, I think it will send an example, a deterrent measure. But again, for that to happen, we are doing investigations. At the end of the day, will there be cases that will be pushed and proven beyond reasonable doubt? And at the end of the day, if it goes to the judiciary impartially, can we look at the evidence and say, yes, we are conferring, we are giving a punishment. I'm not saying in this respect, but I think the whole thing gets lost. The fight starts well, like the way we have seen in the public light, but at the end of the day, as to how it will end is another story. I'm not saying with respect to this particular case, but I think we need to go all the way and send a clear message to the public that we do not tolerate corruption.
Honorable Luchamuzi, what I have seen, a member of parliament in Uganda is under a lot of pressure from the people he represents. He's paying school fees, he's burying the dead, he's building homes, he's helping in delivering pregnant mothers, he's buying land, he's doing so much, building churches and mosques, and what is beyond the scope of what an MP should be doing. In fact, at one point, I escorted an MP who happened to be a friend of mine. We traveled on Friday evening, and in the Toro region, I think he had about 30 million shillings on him. On Monday, he had to call Kampala for help to send him money for fuel to come back to Kampala.
Sure.
I saw that myself. and that man, he was attending to real problems. moving people's homes, and you see that real problems, and you wonder if this man hadn't come that evening, what was going to happen to that family?
Yeah, but to an extent, Kamal, let's go down to the beginning of parliamentary practice. As we speak now, there is lack of dialogue right from the village to the top. Some of those members of parliament would fear knowing that next week they will be addressing people at Kalewe publicly. Some unscrupulous character can come and say, Kamala, you have eaten people's money and you are in parliament. I'm not really saying what I'm saying is correct.
Understand?
And that could strike the balance in terms of responsibility among people, knowing that issues are going to be addressed at my disadvantage. Take the case of parliament, which I know very well, Mr. Kamara. Most of the committees are dysfunctional because they don't expect much in the plenary session. The plenary session is the central point of performance by the speaker. So she makes sure that there is a totally limited dialogue. So you cannot advance any point beyond a certain point. 2, take the village, your own village. If you took trouble to find out how regular meetings are held at the village level, you'll be surprised. There is a total dormancy. Nobody is worried about why such an issue should not be highlighted at a public level. So I would like to think that if we do not get ourselves into a new order, this country is not only about to be suffocated, but it is going to blow out in such a manner that will surprise everybody. The best we can do is as follows. Let us make sure that the members of parliament exercise their responsibilities in acting on certain things by beginning with the Saturday meeting, which Mr. Makumo is going to attend. When you attend the meeting, make sure that you entice your colleagues in Entebbe to talk out realistically about the cornerstone of a problem before President Museveni. Wake him up, even if he gets annoyed, cool him down.
You're suggesting he's in a slumber?
Yeah, there is a problem. Then 2, the members of the opposition. I'm sorry to speak about them, not because I belong to them, but they too have not impressed me sufficiently. There are issues that can be tackled wholesale by the opposition in a manner that can strike a balance before those in power. But you have not demonstrated responsibility in terms of providing solutions about the alternatives. Everyone is quiet. Quietness means nothing.
Actually, what you're saying is true. That parliament of over almost 500 people, you may find there are only 20 people who are debating,
who are active debaters,
who are legislating. The rest are just waiting to vote.
Yes.
But Agatha, maybe the problem is with us, the people who are voting, because it seems we are yet to have, a dynamic citizenry, like a civic competence among us, so that we cannot just accept mediocrity. We, the Ugandans, have accepted and tolerated mediocrity. So unless we are sharp enough, unless we have a higher civic competence, things may not change.
Of course, the problem starts with us. There's a saying that a society gets the leaders it deserves.
These ones, do we deserve them also?
Yeah,
Okay.
we actually do. We actually do. Because if we are going to vote out people because they have not come for our funerals, right? Because they have not paid school fees for our children, that means we want corrupt people. Because the only way people can, meet all the social social problems of our societies is by being corrupt. And I have heard many people say, Right Honorable Mung is very generous, she has done this and that. They don't care whether that could have actually gone to solve that problem, could have gone to equip a hospital, could have gone to build a school. they want to see a leader who is there when they have lost someone and giving money, when they are getting married and giving money, when there's no road. And I have always said, we need to start from there. And it starts from, for me, I have an example I always had from my parents. I think the first time I had my parents tell us that was 2006, when they knew that I and some of my siblings were rooting for Kizza Besigye. And my mother said, at least now we can sleep. So the mediocrity starts from there, that people are very grateful for being able to sleep. Now,
but now the president has said no sleep this time.
Exactly.
So no sleep is no good.
I don't know if he meant by the government or the people that have been grateful for sleep. And I think no sleep it has been there for a while with the same things that were preventing my parents, for example, from sleeping, coming back, the kidnaps and whatever. But what I wanted to say is that when President Museveni comes in every speech and says, in 1986 when we came, this is how much power we're generating. In 1986 when we came, this is how many kilometers of roads we had, and this is what we have now. This is how much revenue
the late Professor Kiki Mujaju said that you needed to listen to President Museveni once in 10 years, because according to him, the speech was always the same.
It has been the same in 40 years, but what I'm saying is that even him, he's not ambitious. So I don't think you can have a society that is, because if you're saying that I used to collect 7 trillion shillings and now I collect 30, and then you have not counted the exchange rate, you have not counted how many people we are now versus then, you do not think of where we could have been. You're just thinking of, I have moved from here to here. And you should be grateful for that.
Yet you ought to be somewhere else.
Exactly, and that's how this society is, and it's going to take. I know a professor who has always said that we will get rid of Museveni someday, but we will never get rid of Musevenism. It's going to take a whole generation, I think, to change what has happened with the society we have.
Okay, now that you're talking about Musevenism, you may not get rid of it. Let me begin with you. It appears this time around that the Chief of Defense Forces has actually shown us that he can call the shots. Because
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. I want him to know, because I suppose the 12th Parliament is probably going to be a historical parliament. You may have a responsibility where you have to turn the arc of history and somehow change the trajectory of Uganda, for better or for worse. But isn't it so open now that our CDF has shown the political might that what he says actually happens? What do you make of that?
It is in the public domain. I can't deny that.
Why are you asking
when
a guy who doesn't want to talk
when
about
he takes a position, you've seen. How do I go against that? So he's in command, he's in control. That's what I can say.
Yeah, but you see, isn't he getting out of his lane as the Chief of Defense Forces to be talking about matters of politics, especially when there's transition of leadership and he gets involved, because he has a cardinal and very specific role that is supposed to be impartial in matters of politics?
I think that's a matter that, in my view, I'm not well placed
I hear you.
to address.
But he's a lawyer.
But I'm not well placed to address, because I'm not in that position of authority. But I think that what I've seen is that he's commanding. Okay. Not only the forces, but even
there's a group, the PLU, the Patriotic League of Uganda, with its patron, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, and they say they have over 300 members of parliament who are aligned to PLU. I don't know what you make of that in a democracy, Honorable Ken Luchamzi.
Yeah, first of all, there is some excitement about his commitment to fight corruption. But that determination should be systematic. you don't simply come out of the blue, even before you are initiated principally, to say you are expected to do this. It can be a dangerous precedent. And I think that my friend Mr. Makamot should warn the people concerned when he talks to them on Saturday. It is very dangerous to entrust a responsibility that is not cornered to the extreme of what should be done.
In the interest of time, I'm going to be asking each one of you to make your concluding remarks. Let me begin with you, Agatha.
Also, I have many things I could make concluding remarks about, but I'll start with what you asked others, and especially because
okay, sure.
It's unconstitutional that the CDF is the one that is fighting corruption even.
Fighting corruption, I mean, it's incumbent upon even yourself.
I mean, I am not the one who decides who gets arrested and searched and investigated. By the time you are waiting for a person to decide, it means we are not going to fight corruption. And that's what I've been saying, that this corruption has been there for a long time. You know, it's unconstitutional and it's a bad precedent, like Chams put it here, for CDF to be the one appointing a Speaker of Parliament and a Deputy Speaker of Parliament. He is a serving member of the UPDF, and the Constitution says a serving member of the UPDF shouldn't be involved in politics. But two, if you already had the problem that it is President Museveni that chooses a speaker, because look, at the end of the day, you want a parliament that can carry out its oversight role. That's why we are having these problems of people being in prisons for forever. That's why we are having problems of people being disappeared, because we do not have institutions that can hold individuals accountable and other institutions. So that's a wrong thing. And then I have also seen how these appointed people are now bowing and thanking him. And for me, it scares me what we should expect of the coming parliament. So lastly, I'll say that you asked about civil society and the role it plays, and if government shouldn't see them as allies. Us who talk about corruption are the ones that are hounded. We are called agents of imperialists. There's even now a law for people like that. Our organizations have been suspended. 10 organizations were suspended in January. Our accounts have been frozen, both organizations and individuals. And now we hear that they are referencing our work in this fight against corruption. So if you now see that I was right, I was not paid by anyone to say what is there, what's factual, why not allow us the leeway to do that work? And like you said, you know, the media is fourth estate. What you have not seen, I can bring it to your attention if you are interested in fighting corruption, that is. But also, if you are interested in fighting corruption, let's investigate all the people that have been involved in corruption.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Your concluding remark.
I'd like to think and to propose with humility that the people in power should strengthen the induction practice for members of parliament. It has been dwindling over the years. If the new members of parliament do not get exposed to the realities of public discussion in parliament, they are in danger. Two, the 12th parliament should draw its attention to the dilemma facing the judiciary in regard to people whom the Supreme Court ordered to be transferred to the civil courts and are still languishing under the hands of the military. That is a disaster.
Thank you, Honorable Makamot. Your parting shot.
I think that what we are seeing in Parliament is as a result of the problem we are facing in the society, the economy. The cost of living is skyrocketing. People are now running to members of parliament to solve their problem because there's a gap, there's a structural gap. And this problem emanates during campaign times, and the cost of election has become too high. That needs to be regulated. Now, when we take away these diversions, like barriers, all these costs that MPs are getting in, and they are supposed to finance from their salary, I think it will leave members of parliament to focus on the core mandates of a parliamentarian, which is legislation, oversight, budgeting, and representation. So we need, in other jurisdictions, we have the constituency fund, which in this case, for some reason, they have been pushing it away. In Kenya, they do have that. In other jurisdictions, there's a whole, for me, I think the problem is, and this is the lacuna, a member of parliament is trying to run the Ministry of Social Welfare from his salary. How much salary can you have to be able to run a ministry? How, and previously the public was talking about how MPs are increasing their salary, and there was a lot of outcry. Even the president came to talk about it. Now they have found another way of getting it without increasing their salary, and that is what we are seeing. Until we address that root cause, until we regulate the use of money, until we give the voters an alternative, like we have started with SAGE for the old people, social protection, security, the 10 core social protection goals. If we don't do that, I think we'll keep on blaming each other, and many of us will be victims at the end of the day. So we need to go to the root cause. We should stop dealing with symptoms.
Thank you very much, Honorable Otto McMott. Thank you, Honorable Ken Luchamuzi. Thank you, Agatha. I want to thank you for your time and for your submissions, but most of all, you, the viewer, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. I know as a country we've had a tumultuous past. Right now we seem to be in an era of confusion, but I'm rooting for Uganda. Why? Because I know we have a good country and we have good people. As the people, we shall get there. Good night and God bless Uganda.